What's wrong?
It's Clark. He's been arrested for treason.
Yo, what is going on, guys? Flashverse here, and welcome back to another video on Superman and Lois Season 2, and this will be my review and breakdown for Superman and Lois Season 2 Episode 6, titled Tried and True. And once again, guys, this was another great episode of this show. Nothing too insane in terms of huge reveals or anything like that. It is still great, and I am really loving the show. But this episode was not anything like crazy or anything like that. It's still a very, very good episode, but it's not anything compared to like the first few episodes of season 2, which I would consider much better. It is really well paced in terms of the storylines they're going for, and we did have a couple of interesting scenes which got me really intrigued. We did also have a couple of great Lois and Lucy interactions, as well as some great family dynamics between the Kent family as well. But that ending, oh my god, we gotta talk about, because it is incredibly interesting. But obviously, for those who haven't seen the episode, then spoiler alert, because this is a review and breakdown after all. So I'll be going over some major spoilers, which you certainly wouldn't want to hear from me. So if you guys haven't seen the episode, go watch the episode and then come back later for this review and breakdown. But for those who are staying, be sure to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, so you are aware of more Arrowverse content coming your way. Okay, so this episode kicks off with us in the Bizzaroverse, or the Mirrorverse, basically. We open up with a reversed or mirrored view of the Kent home, and we kick off with Bizzaro's Superman. And he's essentially walking around the Kent farm. He's getting his Doomsday suit ready, if you will. He has everything put on, he just doesn't put on the helmet yet. He does inhale some X-Kryptonite, which I thought was pretty interesting. Or, I'm not entirely sure, it could have been something else, but I'm pretty sure it's X-Kryptonite. But we do see him inhaling it, and then like a green gas comes out, so I am assuming it's X-Kryptonite. But then we have him going into the DOD of the Mirrorverse, or the Bizzaroverse, whatever you want to call it. And he's just pretty much beating the living crap out of the DOD members from that area, and it was really cool seeing that. The fight scene was really well done, and I did love how they paralleled that with the fight scene we got later on in the episode as well. That was something I was a huge fan of. But we have Bizzaro Superman struggling to take them down for some reason, most probably because he's just feeling weaker against them or something along those lines. I don't know why, but yeah, that is happening. If anyone knows why, be sure to tell me in the comment section down below. It could be because he's not entirely Kryptonian, or it could just be that he has to rely on X-Kryptonite consistently. It could be one of those, I'm not entirely sure. We do know that he is the reverse of Superman after all, so maybe when he's not exposed to like red sun or something like that, then he feels depowered. Maybe that is why. But after we have Bizzaro taking down the soldiers of the DOD, we do actually see him face off against someone really interesting, and it is one of the members of the Superman of America. But in this universe, Lana Lang is a member of the Superman of America, which I find really interesting. And I do really like how they got that Superwoman callback like that. We do know in the Superman comics, Lana Lang does become Superwoman in some way. So I do really like how they kind of got that callback to Superwoman with this scene in the episode where she pretty much is Superwoman, but it's not really in the real world, it's in the Bizzaroverse. But I would still consider that a Superwoman reference, and I think it's really cool. Could that be foreshadowing? I'm not entirely sure, but it was really cool that they mentioned that. But yeah, we eventually have Bizzaro breaking into Ali's office, if you want to say, and he pretty much pulls off the pendant, and then we see him later on like wearing the Doomsday suit we saw him in during episode 2 or 3. I can't remember which episode it was, but it's pretty much the suit he wore until we got the Bizzaro reveal, and we see him flying off. Of course, this is all mirrored, so it's a mirrored version of Kent Farm and various other things like that, which I thought was pretty cool. But we see Bizzaro flying off, and then he obviously hits the rocks, and then that's when eventually he enters the mines, and then we start getting those various like headaches and visions which the two versions of Superman are experiencing. But we then cut back to where we left off from last episode, where we have Clark and Bizzaro talking about what's going on over here. And Bizzaro pretty much mentions that he's here to pretty much stop Ali from merging the universes, and she's able to do that if she grabs hold of both medallions or pendants and she pretty much merges them, and Clark has to either grab hold of the pendant and destroy it, or he has to kill Ali, which obviously Superman's not the type of character to kill someone, and Clark is refusing to kill Ali. So the only way he's pretty much able to stop whatever's going on over here is to destroy one of the pendants. But yeah, Bizzaro was simply just there for good intentions. Obviously, we thought that he would just be a full-on villain, but clearly that wasn't the case. Ali is the big bad of the season, and since she is pretty much the main villain, it obviously makes sense that she's eventually going to grab hold of the other pendant as well, and she's just pretty much going to become a godlike being and become invincible, and it's going to serve as a challenge for Superman to face off against. But we then have Clark and Lois debriefing what he learned from Bizzaro, and they're obviously at the home. Clark is like all shirtless and stuff. It's pretty much in the morning. But then we have Anderson at the DOD, and he's pretty much not happy because this general, or whatever you want to call it, I don't really know what her title is. I'm just going to say officer, but she is angry that Anderson has allowed his relationship with Superman to deteriorate. Pretty much it was going well when Samuel Lane was in charge, and right after Anderson steps in as pretty much the head of the DOD, things just went totally wrong, and this officer is not happy about this at all, because obviously Superman is literally the most powerful being in this planet, and if their relationship isn't good, clearly that's not a good sign. But Anderson doesn't seem to care about that. Anderson, as we know already, he's pretty much selfish. He doesn't care about Superman or anything like that. He's very unlikable. He's a very unlikable person, and we can clearly see that others do not have a great working relationship with Anderson as well. But yeah, this officer, or like general, I'm not sure what her title is, but she pretty much tells Anderson that she has to find Bizzaro and get him captive, or else he will be stripped from his role. So clearly that's putting a lot of pressure on Anderson. It's gonna lead him into doing some pretty unlikable and selfish things, which we will obviously get to later on. But we then head back to the Kent farm, where we have Jordan and Jonathan talking about each other's powers. Essentially, Jordan's like, okay, if you experience these hearing noises, hit me up, because you're gonna need the help you can get, because I've experienced this before and it is not good. He does also talk about the freeze breath and various other things like that, because he obviously thinks that Jonathan naturally inherited the powers of a Kryptonian, and he just thought that it slowly generated, unlike Jordan's, which was much quicker. But obviously we know that Jonathan is simply just an ex-Kryptonite user, so he's not going to really experience these powers to the fullest, because they are temporary. They're just like Velocity X on the Flash, or Velocity 9. It's pretty much just a temporary enhancing drug. In the case of this, it obviously gives you Kryptonian abilities. But Jonathan is just eager to play football. He has a big match coming, and he just continues to lie about the ex-Kryptonite. But we then head over to Lana Lang, and we see her, still dealing with the heartbreak after what she found out from the night before, where obviously Kyle was cheating on her. She's really heartbroken by it. You can really see from this scene, and we have pretty much Sarah just trying to calm her down. But we then cut to Lois outside, and we see General Samuel Lane arriving with someone else, and this is actually Lucy Lane. It was great to see her again, and I was really invested to see where this would go, because them two sharing the screen last time did not end so well. So I was really interested to see where this would go this time, and I was really impressed with what we ended up with getting, and obviously I'll get more in detail with that later on. But for the time being, Lois and Lucy just put their guard down, and they just begin to speak as sisters, and that was something I genuinely really liked. One of my favorite parts of this episode, and it does go into later on in the episode as well, were the interactions Lucy had with the various different members of the family, including Jordan and Jonathan. I really liked the interactions she had with them, and also I did really like some of the interactions she had with Lois as well. I thought those were genuinely great. But we then have Anderson and Superman attending the funeral of the fallen members of the Superman of America. And Superman pretty much wants to speak to Anderson about the pendant after they grieve the death of the members of the Superman of America. So we have Clark going up to Anderson after Anderson has pretty much been trash talked by the family members of the fallen Superman of America, which is understandable because it was Anderson's fault. He sent inexperienced teenagers to go out there in the field facing off against a fully powered Kryptonian, if you will. So it was Anderson's fault, so it is understandable, of course. But as Clark begins to approach Anderson, Anderson is not happy about this at all. He just continues to deny giving Superman the pendant. He doesn't want to give it to him because he says that, oh, you used a different excuse as last time, so how am I gonna know that you don't have another plan with this? And obviously Clark just found out some extra news about it, which is why he was acting that way. But Anderson refuses to give it up. Clark does really need that pendant, or else Ali will become incredibly powerful. So Clark needs to grab that pendant and destroy it. But obviously Anderson does not end up giving it. But Clark then ends up hearing something from another country, in which he flies off to stop what's happening. And we pretty much have Superman flying, and he pretty much stops an avalanche from crushing a town in Russia. It was an incredible scene, incredibly well CGI'd. I really love how Superman just used a variety of his abilities. He did obviously use the freeze breath to slow down the effects of the avalanche, and then he ends up using his heat vision. It was really well shot. The CGI is just amazing in this show. And I forgot to mention during the start of this video, but the cinematography in this episode was just absolutely gorgeous as well. So all of that just made some really great scenes, especially in this one scene where Clark goes to stop the avalanche. It was really cool watching it. But we then had Lucy having these family interactions with Jordan, Jonathan, and of course Lois as well. We did obviously have Clark coming in later on, but I did really love the interactions she had with them. She does obviously talk a little bit about football, which does get the attention of the children, and this was something I really liked about this episode. It was one of the better parts in my opinion. Now we do then cut back to the DOD, where we have Anderson pretty much formulating a plan to get what he wants, which is obviously to grab hold of Bizzaro. Obviously we do find out what that plan is later on in the episode, but we have that, and we then have him staring at the pendant. So it does seem like he's kind of getting consumed by it, just like how Ali got drawn to it from that flashback scene we saw in the previous episode. That could be something that's going on. Maybe this is the reason how Anderson becomes Outburst. That is obviously possible, but I think there's going to be a bigger catch to this, and I think Ali will somehow be able to get hold of that pendant that Anderson has with him right now. We did obviously have some Kyle and Lana scenes in this episode as well, where we have Kyle pretty much just begging for forgiveness for Lana. He does mention that even when he was with the other woman, he still loved Lana more. He still prioritized his family and everything like that. But obviously, Kyle is a cheater after all, so Lana is obviously really heartbroken by that, and she just doesn't trust Kyle anymore. And then later on in the episode, we do obviously have Clark meeting up with Lana just to see how she's doing, because she's obviously heartbroken with what she just found out. And Clark is essentially trying to, comfort her. He's trying to make her feel better. And this was something I really liked as well. But after the advice Clark gives Lana then eventually goes to the bar and talks to the bartender Kyle cheated on Lana with. She does pretty much find out that Kyle did actually leave her eventually after the incident that happened with Sarah, and this does actually show that Kyle does actually prioritize his family, and he does mention that whatever happened between him and the bartender was a mistake. But we then have the football game, and obviously this was Jonathan's first big game where he was starting on, because Timmy was not there, and obviously that does play some sort of a reveal later on in the episode as well. But just before the game, Jonathan obviously uses the inhaler to grab some of the kryptonite so that he's able to steal the show. He was pretty much the man of the match, and that was obviously due to his incredible strength, incredible vision and all those sorts of stuff. He was able to gain Kryptonian powers temporarily after all, and this does give this great game to Jonathan, and it does really hype him up, and he does obviously end up being the man of the match. He pretty much just stole the show. And while that was happening, we did have some great interactions between Lucy and Lois. Once again, we did have some sister bonding scenes, but then later on they do begin to talk about Ali, and then that's when everything starts to tear apart and everything just pretty much goes back to crap. But we then have Jordan finding out that Timmy was actually absent because something happened to him in regards to him inhaling the X-Kryptonite, and he pretty much wasn't feeling well. And that's when Jordan pretty much becomes suspicious that Jonathan was up to no good. He did obviously see the inhaler earlier on in the episode, so he did quickly catch on to things. And I did really like how well paced the storyline was. I'm glad that they didn't stretch it out, where Jonathan was keeping this a secret for a while. But yeah, Jordan is pretty suspicious, in which when we head over to the locker room, we have Candace and Jonathan pretty much celebrating, and then Jordan pretty much walks in and he confronts Jonathan about what he's doing. Jonathan's just acting like a piece of crap, essentially. He's become such a douchebag where you just do not like him. This X-Kryptonite is pretty much changing him in a bad way, and we do have this conflict between Jordan and Jonathan, where Jonathan does begin to get really, really angry. He says, oh, this is the new me now. If you don't like it, you better get used to it. He's becoming really unlikable, and that is obviously side effects of him becoming addicted to X-Kryptonite, and I'm really interested to see where this is going to go. But we do obviously have Clark getting an alert as well. So we have him heading to the DOD, and he pretty much just falls for the trap. Superman arrives at the DOD and he's betrayed by Anderson. We do have that great parallel where we have that similar fight scene between Superman and the members of the DOD versus that Bizzaro scene from earlier on in the episode with Bizzaro facing off those mirror versions of the DOD. It was really, really cool, and it was really well choreographed. It was a really good parallel, and I really, really liked it. Obviously, Superman was betrayed. He didn't see this coming. The red sunlight room is on, so Clark is pretty much depowered, which is what makes him struggling in facing off against these soldiers. But we then have Anderson pretty much knocking Clark out with a Kryptonian bullet, and yeah, things are not gonna go well next episode. Obviously, Anderson just betrayed Clark, and I'm really, really intrigued to see where this is going to go, because it was an incredible betrayal. And Anderson's acting more like a villain. I don't know if he will actually end up becoming a villain, but he's clearly a really unlikable person. Whether they will be on board later on in the season, I don't know about that. But in the last few scenes of the episode, we obviously have Lana approaching Kyle, and she pretty much asks if he would have called off the affair to save a marriage, not just his family. And until Lana can be sure that she still loves Kyle, she asks him to move out. So I am interested to see where that will go as well. Obviously, it's going to end well eventually, but for the time being, I'm interested to see how this will slowly get resolved. But the ending of this episode was pretty insane, where we have Jonathan asking Jordan about the inhaler, but obviously Jordan is not happy about this. As I saw from the promo for next week's episode, Jordan does eventually tell Lois in regards to what's going on, so that's not going to go well with Jonathan. But then, as the ending scene, General Samuel Lane arrives and tells Lois that Clark got arrested for treason. And that's when we have Superman pretty much being carried by these cuffs that are of like red sun. So yeah, Clark is pretty much depowered while he's being transferred to prison. And we find out that Clark is heading right to Tauro, and as I saw from the promo for next episode as well, they will be sharing a prison cell together. It will be interesting to see how Clark will be able to get out. Will he work together with Tauro to escape, or will Bizzaro help break him out? I'm interested to see what is going to happen over there. But yeah, this was a pretty great episode of Superman and Lois in my opinion. I am really loving this season, but this episode wasn't as certainly good as like the previous episodes of the season. It was still an amazing episode. I still really, really enjoyed it, but it was nothing, really that big. But it did have some pretty interesting storylines, and we did obviously get this very interesting ending as well. But yeah guys, thanks for watching. If you guys have enjoyed the video, please give a like and subscribe. Be sure to tell me in the comment section down below if you guys enjoyed this episode. And yeah, I will see you guys in my next video.